The Human Settlements Department is hosting a housing Indaba in Durban. The gathering aims to mobilize the public and private sector to deal with housing challenges in South Africa. Let's talk about this now with the Housing Minister, Mmamoloko Kubayi, the Human Settlements Minister, I should say, joining us now. Minister, very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for your time. So a housing Indaba in a country where, for example, the list for RDP housing goes back in some communities 15, 20 years. How will this move us in the right direction?
Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to your viewers. Definitely, we believe it's it's an intervention that is needed. There's been quite a lot of proposals that we would want to change in terms of approach, both in terms of policy, but also in terms of implementation, where we should be able to find a public-private partnership. As we speak currently, in the West Coast, in Western Cape, in an area called Langeberg. I've been taken to a community in terms of informal settlement, but also where private sector has been able to build and to look at some of the issues, because the community invited me to say, can you come and see the issues that we are dealing with as you go to Indaba and see if you are responding to our challenges. So we do acknowledge that we have a backlog. We have many people that have been raising concerns about the speed that we are providing human settlements. But because we are changing in terms of policy, addressing the issues differently as well, bringing some of the innovation, including looking at how can we utilize technology to be able to bring the changes in the environment that we are operating. Hence, we are gathering in Durban and in the Durban ICC, where we'll be meeting from Sunday to Monday, gathering the issues, listening to experts, but getting feedback as the Department of Human Settlement, whether we are on the right track in what we are doing.
And I should correct that. I said you were already meeting. You're going to meet this coming weekend. And where you are now, the community that you've been speaking to, I'm curious about the issues that they've flagged with you and how they differ. How unique are they? Because part of the frustration when it comes to housing in South Africa is that the problems are recurring, yet no one seems to be moving fast enough to address them.
The problems are recurring. For example, I get here, part of the issues that I'm picking up is that people who do not qualify for RDPs are being given RDPs, for example, based on the municipality. So they do give beneficiaries that are not supposed to have been. So part of how we are responding to that as national, and I will be following up on that, part of how we are responding as national is the issues around beneficiary list that needs to be digital. You would have heard me previously talk about it and how we are going to improve. Secondly, it's around the issue of informal settlements, where you find even services that we regard as human rights issues not being provided. And you find, because the community I went, there are about 600 families, and there's hardly toilets. We've put toilets there, but the maintenance of ensuring that these toilets, because these are communal toilets, because the services have not been put in for the entire community per household. So they are sharing the services. But we are not looking after them in terms of maintenance and ensuring that they are working forever in terms of that. But also talking to communities around the issue of land invasion, but also how we cooperate between ourselves and communities. So those engagements are important, though they are similar across. But when you come each community, you need to be able to take them on board, explain to them in detail what does it mean when you say this can be done or this has to stop. For example, part of what I'm engaging them is that the number of households that is here, it must not grow, so that we are able to intervene properly in terms of the number. Because once it starts growing, then you have a moving target, you will not be able to resolve the problems.
And you mentioned the issue of land. What you said, and you were speaking earlier the same way you said, what South Africa actually needs to focus on now is the issue of urban human settlement land. And that was perhaps made more clear by the floods in KwaZulu-Natal, where people didn't even know that where they had erected shacks or built was not stable ground. You look at the situation in Joburg, the Yexke River. Many people go back there every year after the annual rains because they say there's simply nowhere else to go.
I don't think they don't know. Some of them know. I've been in communities where I have literally told them that it's not safe where they are staying, and they've refused to move. We had to do the most painful thing. Get some of these communities to sign indemnity form, which sort of immunes government from taking responsibility should they lose their lives. Because you go there, you tell them, where you are sitting is dangerous, you are likely to lose your lives. And they refuse to leave. I've had many of those communities where my teams would come back and say, Minister, help us because these communities don't understand. And when you go and still explain, they refuse. So those are some of the painful things that we've got to do. On the land issue, one of the other things that we are dealing with, which is a painful thing as well, is where you find that we do find a land, for example, in KZN, we find a land, we want to move people, and then people then say, not in my neighborhood. You'd know the story of the Prasa line in the Western Cape, in the city of Cape Town. We're finding land to move people. Those who are closer to where we are going to move people, they say, not in my neighborhood. This is not Ubuntu, where people can become so selfish and say, we are not going to allow these people to come into our communities. We're not going to allow another group of people. And sometimes even it goes to the level of racial classifications, where they see this group of people as this type. For example, I get the reports as well here to say they are being classified as people who comes from Eastern Cape, therefore not getting proper support. And those are some of the things that we've got to, as society, have conversations about. Right. One of the things that we want to have as an outcome of the summit is a social compact roadmap that we want to have everybody to understand that we all have a role to play.
You also then would need to resettle people when we move them in areas that aren't too far from urban centres and economic opportunities. And as you were saying, I mean, there's a big conversation when you look at Cape Town, for instance, people who live in the city centre saying they are basically being priced out of that market, which is where many were able to live at affordable prices previously.
Look, that's why we have a program called Help Me Buy a House, but also our social housing program. We do that mainly as part of disrupting the apartheid special development, where we are able to build apartments within the city. We have done that previously, and we want to expand this as part of our PPP model, public-private partnership, where we'll be able to get people to rent affordably closer to cities, but also those who want to buy affordable apartments can be able to buy with the help of government. So we do have that program. It's run under two of our entities, STRA together with NHFC. NHFC is involved in funding. STRA does the development and support for the social housing institutions.
Let's come to the public-private partnerships, and what it is that you want as far as commitments from the private sector. How would those work?
Look, with the partnership from private sector one, we're looking at the financial sector to come on board. And I've been saying to some of them, if we put R1 as government, can they put R1 additional so that we can expand in terms of social housing? So we're looking at partnership in terms of funding models, joint ventures that we can do. We've started discussions with DBSA and Infrastructure Fund, but also calling on the banks. Some of the banks have started to come on board. Others are actually part of the panels that they will explain what they are doing as part of the work that we're doing. So all the banks are starting to doing that work together with Banking South Africa to come on board, and we are looking at other global institutions in terms of funding. The second area is around development. Where private sector comes, we also come, for example, we provide a bulk infrastructure, they do the development, but in the private development, they also do mixed development so that they bring in the social housing and possibly in other areas, they do the BNG houses, which is the RDP, so that we do not continue with that where you have the people who are rich staying that side and the people who are poor staying that side, but you integrating because you are reminding those who are affording that these are the people who end up being your workers. Therefore, let them stay closer to you so that they are able to help you, those who are able to, but also bringing people closer to economic opportunities so that they can either start their businesses or even get employment in those areas.
Minister Mmamoloko Kubayi, thank you for your time.